right. Well, we're going to try a quick video now, or quicker video. Try to shake it up. We're still trying to figure out what people want to see that's sort of in our purview. And it's the Carolina Packers podcast, so the Carolina Panthers and Carolina sports and, the Green Bay Packers. It's in the name. And so Evan, being the big Packers fan, we're going to do a little bit of a talk, which might end up being just more of an airing of grievances.
Yeah, it might be.
Towards the Packers and the trade deadline. Because I know for years, trade deadline comes up and we always have, it's funny, we always have the same discussion every year prior to the trade deadline. And then the exact same discussion after.
Yeah.
So that won't change too much, but this time we commit it to video.
Yeah. So I think obviously the
Bears trade for a wide receiver.
Bears trade for a wide receiver that we were looking at. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I've been thinking about this, and that's why we didn't want to talk about this right when it happened, kind of let the wounds, scab over or whatever. Mm-hmm. Obviously, as a Packers fan, your initial gut reaction is, what in the world are you thinking about? Mm-hmm. What are you doing, front office? Why aren't you doing anything? You're just sitting still, not doing anything. Mm-hmm. On the flip side of that,
you have Jordan Love.
You're 3-5.
Yep.
And clearly, wide receiver is not the biggest issue for the team right now.
I wouldn't say clearly.
I think offensive line is a big issue right now. I think coaching is a big issue right now. Mm-hmm. Biggest issue being most likely our defensive coordinator. You look at our talent on defense. We should not be giving up these points. We should not be playing the way we are. Obviously, reports have come out about how frustrated defensive players have been about the scheme. You look at just when this defensive coordinator got hired 2 years ago, whatever, you look at it, and just based on his background, he was not going to be a good coach. You're talking about someone that was with the winless Lions. Mm-hmm. And then, 2 or 3 years maybe with the Washington, at that time Redskins, but football team. And just, again, they're notoriously, now they have a great defense, but back then never were really known for a great defense. And then all of a sudden we look at him and say, let's hire him. And I remember when that went down, I was so baffled at why that happened. It just confused me. And of course, obviously these past couple years, offense has been playing amazing and kind of masked what the defensive play calling was. And so now you kind of finally see defensive play calling is not good. Obviously, we're not playing well. Yeah. We're going up against teams that have the fire. It looks like Packers will go up in the beginning and then not close the game out. We had a lead, a sizable lead, obviously not this past game against the Bills, but against the Washington football team and Commanders, sorry. And we just let that go away. Instead of stomping, again, that comes up with a muff punt, whatever. It's always something. And so, again, while I'm very frustrated that the front office didn't even throw an attempt into it at this point, especially with how old Aaron Rodgers is going to be, I can see why they didn't this year. Uh-huh. I think 3 years ago when we first really brought it to the attention of, okay, we really only have Davante Adams, really could use a wide receiver on the outside to go with Davante Adams. Yep. You're looking at it where back then it was, kind of have the draft picks. Aaron Rodgers, kind of can lead the team, kind of can do whatever he, can with what he has. He's good enough for that. We're already a really good team. We didn't push hard enough for the pieces. And then also the discussion of, Aaron Rodgers takes time to develop the guys, to develop the chemistry. 3 years ago, think about what would have happened last year. Think about what would have happened, 2 years ago, whatever, when we were 13-3, 13-4. It's very frustrating to see that now because you look back on that and think, really, 2 great shots at Super Bowls within these past 2 years. If we had that additional weapon, again, Davante Adams probably doesn't, or maybe not probably doesn't leave, but is very probably more lenient about leaving because we had an amazing year, went to the Super Bowl, had a great offense, and I think it's very difficult to say that not even this year. And again, yes, we're a lot of pieces away, and maybe a lot of it's coaching. And at this point in the year, it's tough to replace coaches, but it's frustrating to see that the Packers have been so close for these past 3 years, and then finally, it's kind of come up and bit us. And it's tough to see that. And again, one of the biggest things was trading for a wide receiver. And if you look at what happened was, you had really Brandon Cooks was one player that I really wanted, but he had a huge cap hit that probably the Texans didn't want to, eat and then trade away this player. No. So it's one of those things where it's like the Packers don't really have the cap room for it, so they don't want to do it. So that was that window closed. Then you're talking about DJ Moore with the Panthers because they were cleaning house, but then again, the Panthers probably want a cornerstone on their offense, cornerstone on the defense with Brian Burns. They didn't really want to trade him away. So then Chase Claypool obviously was the big traded wide receiver, really. Mm-hmm. And so you look at that, Packers report came out that they tried to trade the second round pick for them, and I'm looking at this and saying, Chase Claypool for a second round pick. Granted, yes, it would show that the front office is at least trying, and I think that's what a lot of Packers fans want. But do we really want to have a second round pick for a very subpar wide receiver? Granted, rookie year, played well, and maybe it's because of the quarterback situation, but a subpar wide receiver, a second string, third string wide receiver, when we already have a bunch of second string, third string wide receivers.
Maybe you guys, because we'll see about this season. Mm-hmm. We'll see how it goes. But really, in some ways, the Packers need to be concerned about what Aaron Rodgers does next year.
Oh, 100%.
Right? And so, and I'm blanking on his name now, but he was at the Falcons, suspended.
Oh, yeah, Calvin Ridley.
Calvin Ridley. That might have been something to look into as an investment for next year to dangle in front of Aaron Rodgers, mm-hmm. because I guess from the outside looking in, I can't help but wonder, and maybe it's just watching Tom Brady a mm-hmm. little bit and how he has struggled this. Well, it's hard to say that he has himself struggled, but clearly his season is overshadowed by his personal life and his divorce and things like that. With Aaron Rodgers, we have seen how much loyalty means to him and how much he depends on wide receivers that he feels he has
the connection with.
Connection and a trust with. I mean, I was just looking. Randall Cobb, who is now an aged wide receiver, is 1 or 2 passes away from being the number 2 receiver on the Packers. Right? And again, I feel that can only be the product of Aaron Rodgers having an affinity mm-hmm. with him. I think we all remember how upset he was when Jordy Nelson was traded to the Raiders and did nothing at the Raiders. Like, what a total waste. Clearly, I'm sure is upset with Devontae Adams being
on a different team.
Yep, exactly. Being on a different team, probably feels not enough was done. A fire was obviously lit under him with the mm-hmm. whole Jordan Love acquisition instead of mm-hmm. drafting a receiver. And you also have to think that right now, after last year, Aaron Rodgers, he kind of was put through the media grinder, I would say, in a lot of ways with his vaccine status and his whole inoculation thing. And the Packers never really put out a statement or really had his back or anything. And so I think with all of these things, I'm sure he feels, with Jordan Love, he got MVP, right?
Yeah.
He feels some sense of personal vindication, mm-hmm. right? But he has a chip on his shoulder now, mm-hmm. not towards the league, but towards his own team.
Yeah, and that's another thing.
And that is not where you want to be, where a house is kind of divided.
And that's another thing, though, too, is like you look at the Packers and their wide receiving like situation,
right?
And you're talking about just an injury-ridden core. You're talking about obviously Lazard in the past has gotten injured all the time, and again got injured again. It might not play this week again. Obviously, Randall Cobb on the IR isn't going to play. Is an older guy. Then your original like first quarter or highest wide receiver pick in years with Christian Watson, he's injured. He's on the bench. You're Sammy Watkins. Yeah, another injury-prone person. You're talking about 4 of your top receivers.
You are down
on
to
the bench.
Like Robert Tonyan.
Robert Tonyan again,
one of the most reliable receivers.
But then again, it's one of those situations where Packers front office is not putting him in position to win, but then also on top of that, the Packers coaching staff is not putting us in position to win. We have arguably top 3 dynamic duo running backs in the league right now,
and that's
with a
the
good
disconnect.
running back offensive line.
Is that you have arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah.
But have built up an offense that relies on running primarily.
And that's fine. And again, that's okay.
But there's a little bit of tension there. There's a little bit of contrast. How do you call the plays?
Yeah. And I think that's another thing. Is like a problem with that again against the Bills second half this year, or this past week I should say, played really well. And it was very difficult for the Packers to obviously get a good run game going because we fell behind so much. Because, again, our defenses and everything, as good as they are, defensive coaching might not be the best. That's another thing that I'll get to later. But because of the far hole we dug into, we couldn't really get out of it. And we had such little room for error when, we run the ball 5, 6, 7, 8, 13 times a drive even. We can't do that when you're down by that much. You don't have the time to do that. You can't come back in a game when you're just running the ball. Even though it's really effective, when you're down multiple scores late in the game, you have to rely on the quarterback with very small weapons, very little weapons, especially, Samandre Toure got his first touchdown catch. Great wide receiver, great play and everything, but again, rookie wide receiver have to establish that connection with Aaron Rodgers, and it was one of those situations where it's like, great play by the rookie, great play, one in a blue moon that he gets open or whatever that happens. It's frustrating to see the Packers not build up around Aaron Rodgers, and then of course Lazard got injured, so for the push at the very end of the game, we didn't have Lazard, didn't have all these people to go to, and Watkins wasn't getting targeted because he's not getting separation. So even when he's not injured, he's not getting separation. We can't throw to him. So it's not like he's an amazing guy if he's only playing or whatever. He's not amazing when he plays either. So it's one of those frustrating things. And then
I think a really good comp actually to what you're talking about with building on running backs in the way that the Packers have built their team is the only other team that I would say is comparable is maybe the team that actually has the better running back duo, which is the Cleveland Browns. And you can see they have, I think, actually now the exact same record. And you can see that it is difficult to run your way back into games because with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, who I think we forget, not making any kind of comment on why Kareem Hunt is at the Browns and the drop from all the whole drama with the video and all that. We forget that Kareem Hunt, while he was at Kansas City, was amazing. And Kareem Hunt as their backup with Nick Chubb as their starter, that is probably the most dominant running back duo in my memory.
Yeah, and
right,
the thing is,
one of the best ever put together.
Oh yeah.
But they're 3-5.
But the thing is,
right?
is I would say the same thing. So the reason I know why the Packers did this is because we lost to the 49ers, which had the exact same situation so many times over and over again. We're like, oh, well, let's establish their position. The reason that it works so well for the 49ers is because they have a really, really good defense, really good coaching staff that can establish different has really good drawn up plays, has really good defense, obviously. And then on top of that, you're looking at a quarterback that, again, Jimmy G is not even close to Aaron Rodgers skill set wise.
No.
So you're talking about, okay, you're taking the ball away from a great quarterback and giving it to the running back because that's how they built the offense. The
Which
reason
begs
that
the question,
why? Exactly.
Why did you build the offense?
Because that's how we lost. And so he was like, oh, let's just go to that. But what happened was the reason that the 49ers did it that way is because they were dealt the hand of the quarterback. So let's build around a stronger offensive line, stronger run game. Because then
they have a system, right? They want to be quarterback proof almost, right?
Exactly.
They want a system that you could rotate above average quarterbacks into and you can make the Super Bowl.
I mean, look at the team now again. It's reloaded.
Yeah.
You have a great defense. Again, you have it's such a good system because of the coaching staff. It's one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
Is the coaching staff is just so smart and all of that kind of stuff. And then on top of that, you look at the team itself. You obviously have Christian McCaffrey, obviously a great tight end, really willing to block at tight end. Again, you're comparing weapons. Deebo Samuel is far above any wide receiver that the Packers have.
Yeah.
And so it's like you're looking at that and just trying to make that transition where, all Jimmy G has to do is do a dump pass, screen pass, slant, whatever, and it goes for yards. It goes for so many plays, so many yards because they get separation. It's a great team. And then you're looking at the Packers and it's frustrating because, for one thing, the coaching staff with the Packers have let us down so much, especially the defense. We talked about the defensive coaching staff, but you can't win if you're stubborn. You can't win if you're stubborn. They're talking about, moving Savage to slot corner and Douglas back to safety, and the coaching staff came out and said, no, we're not moving Douglas. We're not. Obviously, Savage is a great safety and definitely can play cornerback, but no one can take his place. And Packers fans everywhere are saying, why don't you try it? Why don't you give it that shot that, it deserves? Because Rasul Douglas has been getting so many penalties, obviously has had great moments, but it just isn't up to good standards. And the coaching staff and obviously the front office is so stubborn in their decision making. It's frustrating because we could be such a great team. Obviously, we've wasted Aaron Rodgers' talent. Again, we've been consistently good. Again, a lot of teams would take how good we have been and every year being like, okay, we're going to go to the playoffs. We're going to make a deep run or at least have a chance to make a run. We're going to be one of the top, 10 teams in the NFL week or year in, year out. But a lot of teams would take that. But if you have that every single year, it's frustrating because you're not making that step. Like Ian said, you have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. You need to put the weapons around him. And again, you can take a chance, especially this late in his career. Again, maybe early in the career, be kind of cautious because you don't want to waste, a draft pick that'll, be good for years to come. Aaron Rodgers is at the end of his career. Make a trade, do a couple trades even, especially in this offseason. If he's going to stay around, again, we don't know the whole situation with that, but just push it. Push yourself to be better.
It's weird. So, again, I don't follow the Packers like you do, so it's sort of just a average NFL fan perspective maybe on what's going on. But the front office of the Packers seems to have almost a schizophrenic relationship with Aaron Rodgers where when they refuse to draft wide receivers almost implicit in that decision is an acknowledgement of his greatness, right? Where it's like, yeah, we're not going to draft someone because we think you are good enough to make up the difference, but at the same time, we are not only not going to like lean into the advantage that implies because theoretically, if you're good enough to make up the difference, well, certainly then you would invest. Not only are we not going to invest in wide receivers, or I guess they tight end, maybe they got lucky with Robert Tonyan.
But again, he hasn't been playing amazing.
He's
been solid.
He's been solid, but he has been one of the better tight ends.
But again, not this year, not recently. He had an injury last year. 2 years ago, he was amazing. But this past year injury, and then kind of this year's been in and out.
Finish the thought, just as far as then to get Jordan Love in the second round?
First round. Traded up.
Yeah.
That's a smack in the face. And that's the thing. And again, back to my stubbornness. It's one of those things where it's like Packers make a decision and time again stick with the wrong decision.
I would say, and I guess I don't know, but just watching the decision making that's been happening, I would not be surprised if the front office of the Packers, after making the Jordan Love decision, drafting him, and seeing how Aaron Rodgers played and how Jordan Love has played, is sitting there and in this delusional mindset that they create going, yeah, we did the right thing. We drafted him and we lit a fire under Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, yeah.
And that was our plan all along. 100%. They thought he was washed. They were ready to move on. They had the running back offense set up for Jordan Love's introductory years, right? And then they were completely wrong. And they should have drafted a wide receiver because Aaron Rodgers still had it.
Yeah.
And still maybe does have it.
Yeah.
But, again, as I was saying, he has seen that his favorite wide receivers, his friends on the team, are all traded away or they go and walk. No effort is put in to pick him up pieces. When he's thrown into the media, he's kind of on his own, and then he's got his personal, like he was engaged maybe and now not engaged. Well, so he's just sitting there probably saying, how long do I want to keep doing this?
Yeah.
Right?
And again,
do I have a team that has my back or do I move on? We've talked about this. I don't know if he'll go to another team, but the man's almost 40 years old.
He's almost 40.
That's when Drew Brees hung it up. He
a
might
lot
be
of quarterbacks do.
Yeah, he might be looking at it saying 40's a good year.
And I feel like, and also, again, he's a great quarterback that really loves the game, obviously, but I don't know if he's going to risk his body like Tom Brady obviously has to keep playing football. I think he's more like okay, I'll play until I feel bad and then I'm done. I think that's his philosophy, and I think I get more power to him. That's his decision, whatever he wants to do. But I think the Packers, like you said, Packers front office is pushing him out, kind of being like, okay, Jordan Love decision's about to have to be made about what we do with him. We want to see more of him, so just kind of take your time. But maybe, who knows? As a closing thought, do you have anything else?
Only the thought of, at this point, it is a little bit surprising to me that the front office has seen no changes.
It is what it is. It is what it is. As frustrating and as every Packer fan knows, you have to. Maybe it's because we don't have an owner. Maybe it's because of that whole situation with. And again, I've heard situations about no big free agent signings for us because we don't have an owner. We're in the cold. It's a smaller market. It makes sense, but at the same time, we're a historic franchise.
I was gonna say smaller market. I disagree. I really think that as far as teams that live in the popular fandom, here in North Carolina, clearly there are lots of Packers fans.
Yeah, and Packer fans are everywhere.
A Super Bowl in the last, what was it, 2010? Yeah. So almost the last decade.
Yeah, but it's been a lot.
Some teams, I won't name, the Carolina Panthers by name.
2015. You guys went to the Super Bowl in 2015.
I'm talking about wins. You know, like a lot of teams don't even have a win, and then you've got like Lambeau Field, the Lambeau Leap. I mean, there's
history.
Is so much. There's history there.
So then, why aren't we getting any free agents?
Well, they can't lean on. I don't think they can lean on the cold, right? That's an excuse.
I think. So that's the thing is, I think it's a mixture of a lot of things, and I think
because there's colder teams. There's other cold teams,
but a lot of them play indoors.
New England.
But again, yes, there are colder teams. But they also, again, who's a big free agent that they've signed?
Who? New England.
New England. Who's a big free agent that all these teams that aren't in big,
That's true. New England maybe does not have the same free agent signings that
as
you would expect for Bill Belichick.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So it's like you go into these smaller markets, like you don't get a lot of free agent signings. They're either going for money, which the Packers never have. Packers never have money for them. So you're either going for just a chance to win a Super Bowl, which again, yes, the Packers have been close time and time again. But again, they haven't really shown it. They haven't won that Super Bowl to get people to come like Tom Brady did. He's won. He's established. A lot of people flocked to Tampa Bay and then won a Super Bowl. So it's one of the situations where Packers are so close, and maybe, who knows what happens this year. Don't think it's going to.
No.
But, we get Odell.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's another thing. Why don't we go after, like, Will Fuller? Why don't we go... He's a free agent.
Really?
Yeah. Why don't we go after Will Fuller? Why don't we throw some money at Will Fuller to give a test?
You could sign Will Fuller the 5th.
Yeah.
Don't wanna miss the whole, name. You could sign him to probably a minimum contract deal.
Because I think he's like 29, 30-ish. So he's not like super old, but he's not super young. He's established in the NFL, has had great years.
Yeah.
Fast wide receiver.
Fast.
And maybe the Packers turn it around. Maybe the wide receivers, maybe the rookies kind of come back, kind of establish a connection. Again, defense is a major issue.
Mm-hmm. I
think the offense might turn it around this year. I think we're good enough. If we're not, again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Maybe this will be the final discussion or whatever on this. But the unwillingness to change, it has hurt the Packers time in and time out. And this past game, second half against the Bills, showed that we are a team that can win if we just use our pieces wisely. And Bills are probably going to be the Super Bowl champions this year.
They will make it, I think.
100%.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. So you compare yourself to that team. You say you won the second half. Let's see what we can do with that. Let's, again, have to win this week. And then most likely have to win again next week.
If you lose, what is that, 5 in a row you've lost?
Yeah, we'd be 3-6.
Yeah.
Going into Dallas.
Yeah. So, 3-7.
3-7.
Probably.
And end of the year.
Yeah.
But you win this week, establish a good offense, keep going with what you have. Maybe, hopefully get healthier again with the receiving core. But establish what you have on offense. Build what you have on defense. Again, Chris Barnes is an underrated player coming off of injury list. Again, you probably don't know this, but he's a middle linebacker. Campbell's injured. Obviously, Quay Walker, rookie, got into trouble last week. But, again, Chris Barnes, great player coming back from injury. Hopefully can turn around the defense a little bit. You're talking about a defense that has the right pieces, just needs that next step. And hopefully, again, this all is determined really by the coaching staff at this point. I think it's really the coaching staff can go one way or the other. We lose against the Lions, it's done. People got to get fired.
Yeah, have to.
Have to. We beat the Lions. We then put up a fight. Maybe, again, we'll have to see what happens against you're talking about a tough game. A really tough game against the Cowboys. But put up a fight against the Cowboys. We'll see what happens. But yeah, the trade deadline, I can see why this is the first time I can see why the front office is hesitant because of how bad we've played this year and because of our record. I understand it this year because we have more problems on just one. But going back years, it's frustrating that we didn't trade for wide receivers when we could.
Yeah.
But
and that they didn't lean into it now.
Yeah, definitely. And again, all we need, the Packers, like we've said in the past, the Packers just need to throw a hat in. Not even go after a huge wide receiver. Just go after a good piece.
And with guys like Odell and Will Fuller out there, it's like, what do you have to lose?
What do you have to lose?
Yeah.
Like last year, we did a vet minimum offer to Odell. A vet minimum. Like, that's disrespectful, really. I mean, the Rams got him because they wanted him. And clearly, he was the reason they won the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Or I should say, he was one of the reasons they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, as good as Cooper Kupp is, when you've got a guy like Odell
on the other side,
even though he has admittedly, he's fallen off a little, injuries have caught up, he's one of those players that his reputation precedes him. You have to respect him on the field. And so having a guy out there as your number 2, you never know when he's going to be number 1 for a game. Right,
and
so
that's the thing
so
about
Odell.
So
you can't just double him, or you can't double Cooper Kupp, because you've got a guy like Odell out there. That's the thing. He's got the what is it? The miraculous catch or whatever.
Yeah.
On the Giants. He's got all this stuff where when you put him out there, if nothing else, he opens up the rest of your backfield.
Thing, you know?
And so picking him up, it's really worth the money.
It might as well.
Yeah.
Might as well go. And again, that's all Packers fans really want is just a shot. Just the front office to do something.
Take a chance.
To take a chance, exactly. And at this point, I think that's the biggest thing that the Packers need at this point is for the front office to do something, not just sit on their hands and do nothing. But if you guys have any thoughts on this, leave in the comments below.
All Packers fans.
All Packers fans. There's a lot of us. But I'm looking forward to reading them. Yeah. We'll see you next time.
Yep.
Peace.